Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we will be working on the common warthog and Chinese pangolin encounter. Now, I took a little bit of inspiration from one of the lady designers' warthog designs. So it was like this big hole in the ground and there was like a guest overpass. So I'm trying to do that kind of thing too and smoothing it out so I could make the warthogs go down. I also saw this Reddit post earlier, and it showed like this some sort of burrow that he had made all by himself, and it showed that the warthogs have been using it. Now, when I was building this, I think the entrance was a little bit too small, and that's why the warthogs weren't using it. So next time when I make my next video, I shall be updating it so it would be easier for the warthogs to go in there. Now, warthogs are actually one of my favorite animals in Planet Zoo because I think there's something about them that's kind of adorable, especially the babies. Like, the baby warthogs are kind of cute in my opinion. They're just kind of small, but for some weird reason there seems to be this weird glitch that happens that when I zoom out and far away enough, the baby's animation suddenly stops happening and it just starts moving out of place. So you'll see that later on in the video. Right now I'm working on some more foliage and trying my best to cover up the rock work. Now I have a little bit of a problem. It's actually I know there's a setting in the enrichment where you can stop it from like flattening the terrain. I want to try to do that, but for some reason it wouldn't let me on my end. So if you guys have any tips, please give me some more information. I'm actually still quite new to this Planet Zoo. I've only played it for like a couple years, maybe like 2 years maybe. Right now adding more foliage, putting in the grasses, things like that. And now we are going to work on the custom barrier. Now I think I got this design from somewhere. I know I got it from somewhere, but I don't remember where. So it consists of these basic Planet Zoo logs that are sort of like interconnected, that are like up and down, things like that. So I turned that and then duplicated it. Kept using it. Now I'm not going to use it for the entirety of the habitat because I think that's quite boring. So I used some of the null barriers and turned them into wood barriers and then added a window so people could see through. So here I am adding the wood barriers and adding the window and checking out the view to see if the visitors and guests could have a better view. Working on more of the terrain, and now I'm working on the overpass where the guests can see above the habitat so they can sort of see the warthogs inside the habitat. I got this inspiration from the Dallas Zoo that I visited earlier, like last week maybe. They had some sort of warthog overpass where we could see the warthogs, and I'm using some of the rocks to cover up these pillars. I really want to find a way how to remove them because I think they're really wasting up too much of the habitat space in my opinion. So if any one of you have any tips for this, please help out. Now I'm connecting the warthog habitat to the underground tunnel network because I really hate making backstage areas. I'm not a big fan of them and I'm not very good at them either. So I'm using the wood to cover up the hole that it has made, sending some of the warthogs in, and yeah. Now I've tracked down my next caretaker. And I've tracked him down before he can even take his warthogs out. And guess too many guests are really becoming a problem, and I just realized that I have so many aardvarks. Like, I never realized, but there's just so many. They've just been there, and I haven't taken care of any single one, and so they've been multiplying like crazy. I think there are like 24 of them that I just released, and it was actually quite painful for me to release into the wild for every single one. Anyways, the warthogs have now entered, and here they are in their full glory, and one of them is already checking out the mud bath and looking at the foliage and admiring my beautiful work. I also have realized that my lemurs are very thirsty, so I put down a little water bowl and waited for the keepers to fill it up. Now I'm creating the paths for the Chinese pangolin guest encounter. Now for some reason the doors stopped working well, so I was really confused on why this was happening. And then I realized that they use barriers, so I could use the barriers to straighten it up, and that actually worked pretty well. And now I am creating some mesh fencing around the place so the pangolins can't escape. And at first, to me, it looked quite big of a habitat, but when I added the fencing in, it suddenly looks a magnitude smaller. And for some weird reason, the guests started entering and then just leaving out of nowhere. I think I should have blocked them from going there. So all of these parts, I actually really like using them. I think it adds a touch of personality. And I'm using some of these to add the tropical feeling, because that's where Chinese pangolin lives. And Chinese pangolins are actually really endangered animals because of one not very good reason. People in like China and South Asia, places like that, they like to use medicine that are using Chinese pangolin scales to make them some sort of sacred medicine. People think it's a good thing, but it's actually not. Pangolin scales are made out of keratin, so it's basically the same thing as eating your own fingernails, which is not very good. So I don't get why lots of people like to eat them. I mean, no personal offense to anyone, but I just find it so weird why people would like killing an innocent animal for something that doesn't even work. There is no scientific evidence that proves pangolin medicine is effective. In fact, pangolin medicine isn't even helpful. People think it's just, oh wow, this creature is so unusual, it must be perfect for medicine. And they eat it, and they have no effects. It's not scientifically proven that it's effective. So it's basically the same thing as eating your own grinded up fingernails. And they just strip off the scales of pangolins and throw them back into the wild. And pangolins, scales are vital to their life. If they lose their scales, they're toast out there. Anything could eat one. No scales, no protection. It's like ripping someone's clothes off in the middle of the Arctic and then grinding his clothes up and then selling it as medicine. It's just really stupid in my opinion. Why would anyone want to do that? Now we're bringing our Chinese pangolins over, and I realized that I used to think that guest gates worked as habitat gates too, but now that I think about it, that doesn't work. And I'm covering up the entrance so it doesn't look so weird. And now I've sent our pangolins on their way. And while the caretakers are headed straight for them, I decided to add some signs. Now, this pangolin guest encounter is heavily based off of ZHS Play's armadillo guest encounter, but it's really not the same thing. It's almost the same thing, but it's actually not the same thing. One, because I don't have the grassland pack, so I don't have armadillo. And two, I also think that pangolins are a little bit cuter in my opinion. My opinion, nobody else's, is my opinion. So people who like armadillos more than pangolins, no offense. So for some weird reason, the pangolin decided to start climbing the guest encounter seats, and everybody is amazed by this pangolin. It's actually quite funny. some more cinematic shots of our pangolin buddy, and adding more foliage in general. Checking up on the warthogs. So this is the weird glitch where it just starts bumping up and down without the real model even moving at all. So that's actually a pretty weird glitch that hopefully Frontier fixes in the next update. Now, I've taken an overview on the zoo, looking around at our common warthogs. Now I'll leave you to finishing the video, and I'll see you next time.
This